Yo, it's your boy WesTheTech here to bring you another one of my personal favorite tech tips to help you as an artist grow in your craft. Now today we're going to go over, is paid Spotify playlisting worth it, alright? So if you're a recording artist who's trying to figure out if you should actually pay for Spotify playlisting, then this is the perfect video for you, because in this video I'm going to go over everything that you need to know about Spotify playlisting and whether it's actually worth it or not to invest your money into Spotify playlisting. All right. Now, before I continue, I definitely want to let you guys know about my free music business checklist tool that's available to download off of my website right now. This is for any one of you guys who's looking into starting your own music business but don't quite know where to start. With this free tool, you'll actually be able to identify 3 things that you could do right away to start your own music business. So if you want to grab this free tool today, you can click on the link above. I will also leave the link in the descriptions below, all right? Now, when it comes to Spotify playlisting, it's really a very touchy and tricky topic because there's no real right answer to whether it's actually worth it or not to use it or to actually invest in it. So if you were just to ask me the question outright, I would always answer by saying it depends. Now, that is the best answer that I could give because there's so many factors as to why I can't just say yeah, it's worth it or not, or no, it's not worth it. But what I'm going to do in this video is kind of lay out why it's difficult to determine that. That way you could at least ultimately figure out if this is something that you would want to do overall. All right. Now, the reason it is so difficult to answer that question, to just simply say yes, you should pay for Spotify playlisting, is because you won't actually know what service you're getting. You won't actually know what the results are. And what I mean by that is the legitimacy of Spotify playlisting is the biggest issue. You don't really know what you're getting because ultimately at the end of the day, you won't know if people are actually listening to your music or not, right? Because all Spotify will show you, even from the Spotify from artists, even when you look at it at the stats and all of those things, all it's going to show you is how many times the song has been listened to and what country is listening to from, right? Now, when it comes to a song being played on Spotify, the whole song doesn't even need to be listened to for it to count as a stream. It could all it has to do is be like, I think 20 or 30 seconds, and that will count as a listen. But if you're just getting 20, 30 seconds streams, then are people actually listening to the music? That is the difficulty when it comes to all of those different websites that will take your money so that they could get your music on Spotify playlist, because ultimately, again, you won't know the legitimacy of it. I've tried so many of them out there, and even now to this day, I can't ultimately say this is a legitimate company or this company is not. I can't do that because ultimately I can't identify whether they're being listened by real people or not. And if you're going to invest in something, you want to make sure that it is real people who is actually listening to it and there's a real fan base behind it. So the legitimacy of Spotify playlisting is something that will always be in question, which is why it's not an easy, straightforward answer to say yes, it's worth it or not. But the legitimacy isn't the only issue. The second issue is probably just as big as the legitimacy, and that's the actual cost, right? Because the cost of Spotify playlisting never adds up to what the results will be, right? And what I mean by that is, let's say you have a company that says, you can get anywhere from 1,000 streams to 3,000 streams if you pay them, I don't know, $70, right? If you pay us $70, we'll get your music on playlist, and ultimately you'll get anywhere between 1,000 and 3,000 streams, right? When I see stuff like that, it automatically tells me that it's not worth it. Why is that? Because ultimately, in order to make $1 as an artist on Spotify, you need a minimum of 300 streams, right? So let's just go with that 1,000 to 3,000 range, right? And to be honest, that's very standard. Like a lot of these companies, for to get edit streams around 1,000 to 3,000, they're gonna ask like $70 or more, right? Anywhere from $70 to $100, right? But if we actually take 3,000 streams, which is the most that you'll get, right, and we divide it by 300, right, we're only getting $10 worth of streams. Why? Because every 300 streams on Spotify, you will make $1, which means that you're spending $70 only to get back $10 worth of streams. That makes no sense. The math just doesn't add up for the cost. Now, I know some of you guys are thinking, yeah, but if they're actual people listening to it and they're adding it to their playlist and they're actually becoming fans, they'll keep listening to my music, this, that, and the third. That is very, very true. But again, going back to my first point, can you guarantee that those are real people listening to the song? You cannot guarantee that, because the legitimacy of it will, again, always be in question. So the cost of it never adds up to what it is, and the legitimacy is an issue. So ultimately, how do you know if you're actually investing in the right company to actually get your music on the playlist? And the answer to that is you don't, and you won't know. The only thing that you can identify is certain red flags that you could point out when it comes to certain companies and say, okay, I know this is a red flag, and this company is probably not getting legit streams for me. And that's the one thing that I can give you and share with you is these red flags, all right? So one of the red flags that you always want to look for if you're planning on investing in Spotify playlisting is if they're giving you a exact number of streams. If they're telling you that if you pay this amount, you'll get 1,000 streams, that is not legitimately. That is not legitimate at all. I mean, think of it logically speaking. Essentially what they're saying is that we can guarantee you that this will have 1,000 plays from random people, from people who are just listening to the playlist. They cannot guarantee that unless they themselves are controlling how the streams are being done, right? I can guarantee you a certain amount of streams if I'm the one who's using a bot or something to get you those streams. But I cannot guarantee that if I play your music to 1,000 people, that everybody will actually listen to it the whole way through. You get what I'm saying? You can't control that. So ultimately, if they're guaranteeing you an actual stream count number, that's already a red flag. That means that they're not actually dealing with real people. It could be fake bots and all of those different things, right? The second red flag that you want to look into, that you want to pay attention to, is when you're getting streams from all of these different countries, right? Because that obviously is a red flag as well. Because let's say I'm a curator or someone who has a bunch of playlists. Why would I have playlists that is being listened to in a bunch of different countries? That actually doesn't make sense, because ultimately the music that I'm having on a playlist is not country or worldwide music. You get what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, I have a playlist, I got people from Finland and this, that. That's typically not how it works. The only people who have, the entire world listening to their music is those who are super, super famous, right? So for the fact that your streams are being played in all of these different countries, that's a red flag as well. That's something that usually is tied to bots or fake streams as well. The same way as the guaranteed streams. So if you see stuff like that, that's another red flag, right? Another red flag that you will see when it comes to actually dealing with these companies, besides the guaranteed numbers and the different countries, is if your music is actually being placed in playlists that don't make sense according to your music. If you're making rap music and you see that your song is being placed in a country music playlist, that is a red flag. right? Because ultimately, why would they be taking a rap song and putting it into a country playlist? Because that genre doesn't even fit with that. So that tells me that that playlist isn't a legit playlist, because if people were really listening to that playlist and that was a Spotify playlist for country music, why would they add rap to that? It makes no sense. That's another big red flag that you'll notice when you're doing these Spotify playlisting, right? So those are the three big keys and three big things you should always look out for, right? But here's the ultimate issue with that. You won't see any of those things until you actually try it. And that's probably ultimately my biggest issue with Spotify playlisting companies, or those who say, yeah, we'll curate your music, we'll find Spotify. All of those companies, you can't actually try them out. Every last one of these companies, you have to pay them for the service. The service is then given to you, and then only after the campaign, only after you use the service, can you actually find out these red flags. You can't find out who listened to it if you don't pay for it first. None of them ask you to pay for it after the fact. They all ask you to pay it up front, and you can't do anything about it from that point, right? So literally, if you want to find out which one's legitimate or not, you're going to have to try out every single company and pay for every single company. And then you have to do the research afterwards and look at the results and determine from the results if it's legitimate or not, right? So that's why ultimately, if you're asking me the question, I will say it depends. And really, it's a no. I don't think it's worth it. But there's one streamlined way that I personally have done that I know absolutely works. And that's when I have identified and found a playlist and find the curator of that playlist and contacted them directly. I'm not using any company to curate it for me. I rather find the person who owns the playlist, contact them, and work out something with them, right? Me, myself, I do Christian hip hop. I'm a Christian hip hop artist, right? So what I do is I just search Christian hip hop playlists on Spotify. Then I go through them and find the Spotify playlists that actually have who is curating on there. Sometimes they put their IG page or whatever, and I contact them directly, email them directly, and talk to them, send them my music, and this is literally what happens. They either like it or they don't like it. If they like it, some of them will just put it on there, or others will ask you a fee of like $10 or whatever, so that it's on there for a month, whatever the case may be. But what you do know is, you do know that you are dealing with a real person. You are dealing with a playlist that fits your music because you literally did the searching yourself. And once they add your music to their playlist, you know that you're actually going to be getting real listeners, because who's ever listening to that playlist likes that type of music. That is the only success that I personally have found when it comes to Spotify playlisting, which is why I don't use those companies. I rather just find the owners of the playlist myself and work out something with them directly in that way. That's the safest way to do it. And that's the only way that I've found that I've actually been able to build a real fan base and avoid all bot streams whatsoever. But if you're thinking that you could just, sign up to this company, pay them $100, they give you 3,000 streams and you get famous off of that, the answer is no. That's not gonna cut it. That's not gonna get the job done, because ultimately most of them aren't legit anyways. All right, but that's pretty much it. That's what this video was about. Just bringing all of this to your guys' awareness, right? Because of course, knowledge is power, and here, I just want to make sure that you're making the smart decisions and making great investment decisions when it comes to your music career, right? Do not invest all your income into getting Spotify playlisters and those companies, because you're not going to be happy with the results at the end of the day, and you're not going to grow the way you're supposed to grow. All right. But that's pretty much it, guys. That's what this video was about. Really just identifying and having that conversation about paid Spotify playlisters and all of those different companies that curate your music on Spotify, all of those different things. That's what this is about. But before I let you guys go, I definitely want to let you guys know about my book here, The 13 Steps to Jumpstart Your Music Business. This is for any one of you guys who's looking into ultimately leaving your 9-to-5 jobs so that you can do music full time. I've been doing music full time for almost a decade now. And the biggest reason that I was able to do that was because of this book right here. These 13 steps is the exact 13 steps that I took to jumpstart my music career. And I believe if you really want to have a successful music career, you need this book to guide you along that way, all right? I have it in ebook form, and I also have it in paperback form for those of you who want a physical copy of it. But if you want the ebook, obviously you can download it and start reading it today. You can find this link in the descriptions of this video. You can also find it on my website as well. All right, guys, but that's pretty much it. That's what this video was about. I hope that everything that was discussed in this video can at least help you make a rational decision when it comes to investing in Spotify playlisting companies. And I'll see you guys next week. All right, thank you. Have a good one. Peace.
I'm feeling like David. Can't nobody slay me. I feel like Moses. Big Moses. Can't nobody hold me. I'm feeling like Daniel. Big Daddy. Can't nobody face me.